Do you live in an urban area or a place where you don't have the space to go outside and set up a large composting bin? But you still want to compost, right? Everybody wants to do their part to save the earth. Don't worry, I got you. In this video, we're going to talk about how to set up a simple DIY worm bin. What's up, world? Welcome back to the Big City Gardener YouTube channel. And today we're going to get straight into it and talk about one of my favorite ways of composting, and that is vermicomposting. We're going to set up two different bins, but the ideas are still the same. A bin inside of a bin. Now, vermicomposting is composting with worms. Not just any type of worms. More specifically, or really the most commonly used worms are these right here. Red wiggler worms. In order to vermicompost, you need to set up a house or a bin where the worms will live. If you don't know about vermicomposting, then rather than me explain it to you in this video, you should check out this video up here. And this video will tell you all about what vermicomposting is and the different components. In this video right here, all we're gonna do is put a vermicompost bin together. So let's get to it. First things first, we're going to need a worm composting bin. 12-gallon plastic totes. You can use any size tote that you want, but word of advice, you don't need a deep bin. You need a shallow bin. So really, if we could get a bin that's half this size, but twice as wide. The reason being, the worms only live in about the top 3 inches of the bin. Even though they can make their way all through the bin, you will find the majority of the worms right there at the top. And that's because these red worms, these composting worms, are surface dwellers. If you don't have a bin, then you could use something like a 5-gallon bucket. If you're gonna use a 5-gallon bucket, I recommend using a food-safe 5-gallon bucket. First thing we're gonna do is drill some holes in our bin. You'll notice, even though I have 2 bins, I am only drilling holes in one of them. These holes allow the air to get into the worm bin. A worm bin is an aerobic environment, not an anaerobic environment, meaning it needs oxygen to do its composting thing. Now, this right here is probably a 1/8 drill bit. You don't want massive gaping holes where all of your substrate can just fall out, so 1/8 will work. Also, you'll notice that I'm not drilling in any particular pattern. The goal here is just to create enough holes so that there is constant aeration in this bin. As you can see, we have our holes on all sides and the bottom. We even have holes drilled on the lid. Same thing for our black tote here. Holes on all sides and holes on the lids. Now it's time to set up the bedding. You'll hear a lot of people tell you to put cardboard, shredded newspaper, things like that. But you know what I like to use? I like to use cocoa core. Somebody just shot 8 times. Next thing we're gonna do is saturate the cocoa core. Now you don't want the bedding to be too wet. One of the good things about drilling all the holes in the bottom of this container means that excess moisture is able to work its way out of the container. Now, this is too wet. So what we're going to do is add some more bedding in there. This is my secret ingredient. This right here is a bag full of leaves. This will help create an environment that the worms love, as well as absorb some of that excess moisture. Probably one of my favorite things in the world, okay? You can use them as mulch on your soil. You can use them to fill raised beds. You can use them in your worm bins. You can use them in your compost piles. Man, people just throwing away gold here. So we use this bucket inside of another bucket so that we are able to catch the excess liquid in this bucket and then dilute it and feed it to our plants. Drop it down there at the bottom, put our bucket on top. You'll notice it created a little bit larger gap on the side of the buckets, and it keeps the bucket from resting on the bottom. So that means all of the excess liquid is actually able to drain out of our top bucket and into our catch basin or our catch bucket. Now we're gonna add our worms to our bin. So for now, we're just gonna cover the worms with some more of our leaves. Now we're gonna get the cardboard. And now we have the moist cardboard. We're just gonna use it to cover the worm bin. Then we're gonna grab our lid and simply put the lid on. Create a habitat that's not too wet, that's not too dry, and consistently feed your worms. Do not overfeed your worms though. So since I had a small amount of worms, I'll start out giving them probably a 1/4 pound of food once a week. Once I see that the worm population has increased, I see the size of the worms has increased, I start to see more cocoons inside of my bin, then I will up the amount of food that I feed the worms. Oh, don't store this in direct sunlight.